What if I told you the media has no idea what's actually happening in the Vancouver housing market? And what if I told you that two different news outlets took the exact same Royal LePage data and somehow managed to tell you two completely opposite stories? And that's exactly what happened on December 9th. And just to be clear, this isn't Royal LePage changing their stance or contradicting themselves. The data was the same, the outlook was the same, but depending on which article you clicked, you either heard that the market was improving for 2026 and pricing was going to come up because buyers will be coming back, or that momentum was collapsing and the correction was deepening. Two completely different narratives from one data set on the same day. That's not a market problem, that's a media problem. And it shows you how easily a headline can be shaped to fit a storyline instead of helping you understand what's actually happening on the ground. So in this video, I'm not giving you another market report. I'm going to walk you through what I'm actually seeing boots on the ground, working with buyers and sellers every single day. And I'm going to pair that with what's happening at the time of recording. The Bank of Canada holding rates, the bond market jumping on the latest job data, and markets now pricing in potential rate increases next year, not cuts. Those are the real forces shaping behavior right now, not headlines, not speculation, not recycled press releases. So let's break down the reality of this market, what buyers are actually doing, how sellers are actually responding, and why the media keeps getting this story wrong. I'm going to bring the first article online here and show you the discrepancies between both of these articles. So you can see this was publicized by City News Everywhere by Sammy Hughes of the Canadian Press, posted December 9th, 2025 at 1 a.m. So could not wait to get this article out on the ground for December 9th. And you'll see that they say home prices expected to tick higher in 2026 amid market reset, Royal LePage report. Then when we go to the exact same day here, this is December 9th, just a few hours later at 11 a.m., a CTV News article, Metro Vancouver home prices expected to fall again in 2026. And this is what I always say. If you are relying on the media to affect your narrative of the real estate market, you are going to be in a world of hurt. You need to be investing yourself in great market knowledge from agents on the ground to understand what's going on, because case in point, how can you have two articles on the exact same day tell polar opposite stories? And this is what the media does. They sell stories. They do not necessarily sell fact. So when we go through this article, because I just want to pick up to see exactly why they feel like this is going to happen. So they're stating here that Royal LePage is forecasting an uptick in home prices for 2026, as it says the Canadian housing market is primed for a reset. The real estate firm projects the national aggregate home price will increase 1% year over year in the fourth quarter of 2026. What's interesting about that is in the same one, they are also using Royal LePage data here on their 2026 market survey. And what they say here is that the aggregate price of a home in Greater Vancouver is expected to fall 3.5% year over year in the fourth quarter of next year. So again, they have some fourth quarter projections in both articles. This one's for Greater Vancouver. This one here, this is more speaking about Canadian housing. But again, it does not really make sense that you can have two completely different narratives here from the same sort of space and creating a bunch of confusion in the marketplace here. So as we go down this first article, again, just to see some other highlights, I'm reading this through live with you. They have another quote here from Royal LePage President Phil Soper. And he states, I think the general feeling among more people in the street, consumers, is that the interest rate decline period is near an end or at the end. And that's good news because people won't be sitting around waiting for that. He said in an interview. So at the time of recording here, the Bank of Canada today just stated that they will not be cutting rates today. But on this opinion piece here, and this is from the Globe and Mail, don't be surprised if the Bank of Canada raises interest rates next. So in this first article, again, there's using a quote, and I don't know if it's in context or not. I'm thinking probably not, because we have two opposing views here. That part of the argument is because rates are continuing to drop, or at the end of the cycle, people are now going to want to move forward and move in. On this one here, it's now stating that this may not happen. So we can see here on Wednesday, the Bank of Canada held its policy rate at 2.25%, which everyone expected that to happen, especially with that job data that came out where Canada added more than 60,000 jobs last week. So we all figured that we were going to get a hold. And because of that recent job data, it really threw out the chance of probably any more rate cuts. In fact, and this is why you're going to see in this opinion piece, that they're going to see that there is a good chance that we're going to see some increases with that Bank of Canada policy rate here. So if we move down here, you're going to see some projections here and some revised projections when it comes to the GDP growth for Canada. And you can see that blue was the previous marker here, and then it's been revised with some of the data that the Bank of Canada has been reviewing, and it shows that our GDP is actually growing in the opposite direction and is starting to create a different path here with the revised difference for 2025 here. So these are why they are stating that a lot of these markers that they're watching for in the economy is a lot stronger. The only really reason why we begin to drop rates is because we need some stimulus in the marketplace and the economy is suffering. So one of the biggest reasons why they track the data points is because obviously with the interest rates, they can control how people spend money. You know, if we need more stimulus in the economy and the economy is starting to drag out, they can lower their rates, and obviously that is going to create more money in every Canadian's pocket every single week or bi-weekly or monthly whenever they get their paychecks to be able to spend things on other items. When they believe that, but as we're seeing with these revised projections here, they're not seeing that we need that stimulus. We can see that the stimulus is being provided already, and that is a reason for them to hold their rates. So you can see that on a quote here, the data revisions are certainly nice to see from a labor productivity perspective, but for the bank, it's unclear what it means for the likely path of inflation. While realized GDP was higher than we thought, it was nothing about potential GDP, what the Canadian economy is capable of producing at full employment. That metric is important because the output gap, the difference between actual and potential GDP, is what affects inflation, right? And they're just trying to combat those inflationary numbers, and that's how they use the policy rate to be able to do that. So we can see here moving forward, given the stubbornness of core inflation, consumer price index trim is at 3%, CPI median is at 2.9. You could make the case that the economy's potential is unchanged and higher actual GDP was responsible for keeping price growth elevated. If true, this would close the output gap the bank has been estimating was negative. A negative output gap would possibly justify further cuts, a closed output gap less so. The article then continues to go downward here in terms of the unemployment rate, and obviously with productivity and GDP growth, it is fashioned on employment. And you can see that our employment rate, and you can see how high it was, obviously this was COVID, we are starting to trend downward here for a couple months. We were on a pretty steady decline, or we were on a pretty steady incline from July of 2022 all the way up to August of this year. And since then, we're starting to see some of these drops here in the unemployment, which is really, really important. This is some important narrative here. At 2.25%, the bank's policy rate is currently at the bottom end of its estimated range for the neutral rate, the rate compatible with inflation at the 2% target and the economy at full employment. Given the positive data surprises, but paired with what we see as underlying weakness, the lower end of the neutral rate range seems appropriate. The bank is likely to remain on the sidelines well into the new year as long as headline inflation continues to hover around the 2% target. There are arguments both ways for the direction of rates, the author states. On the one hand, more fiscal spending is on the horizon alongside elevated core inflationary measures. On the other hand, there is a fair amount of underlying weakness in consumption and uncertainty with the continued trade war. We still see a cut as the most likely direction change, but would not be surprised as a hike. So going back to the media again, we see that the headline says, don't be surprised if the Bank of Canada raises interest rates next. But what do they say on the very last sentence here? We still see a cut as the most likely next direction change. So again, be very careful when you're getting your articles, when you're getting your data from the media. These again are seeing things in two different factions. And if you look at some of the other commentators that look at more of the economic data, there is a case if we continue to get some growth here where we could see some rate cuts going up. But I don't think it's going to be anything drastic. But what I want you to be mindful of, rates right now are great or have been great. And the cheapest fixed rate I actually was able to take advantage of was with Scotia at a 3.55% fix. And I locked that in just a couple weeks ago. You don't have to wait till the very tail end end of your renewal to start negotiating. I was 22 months away from my renewal date. Depending on your lender, sometimes you can start looking at a renewal within 2 years. So if you can break that threshold. And when I was informing some of my buyer clients, they locked into some of these rates that were higher than 5%. And even on a fixed rate, it may be worth a conversation to see what the penalty is if you can drop from within the 5s to under 4%. Also, if you are a variable rate holder and you didn't have a great discount, that's what I had in my particular principal residence, I flipped over to my fixed rate at 3.55 and I saved myself over half a point. So make sure that you are having ongoing conversations with your lender. You don't have to wait to the end of your renewal, and you can take advantage of this cheap money. And when we talk about the cheap money and we look at into 2026, we know that it's more of a confidence issue for buyers. There are a ton of buyers out there. I know I have lots in my system. I know colleagues have lots in their systems, but they're very cautious right now. Even though the monthly, when it comes to mortgage across the board, is back to 2021 levels, it is still preventing people from going out there and purchase. Because in 2021, when we saw these mortgage rates, sale pricing was around 40% higher, but we're continuing to see 11 consecutive drops in pricing, but we're not seeing this huge rush into the market. For those who are disciplined, for those buyers who know what they want and can make a move quickly, you are getting crazy value. We just removed subjects on a property in the Vancouver house yesterday. I'm going to do a full review of that one. And this property was originally listed at 1.1 million. It was assessed just over $1 million, and we got it at the second lowest price per square foot in that building, over 159 sales, the second lowest. All right, so there is really good value, especially in anything that's been built from 2020 onward and more of the luxury space. You can find some great value with people who are over leveraged. One of the highlights, and like I said, I'm going to make a video about this. If you are flexible with your dates, looking for tenanted properties with the rules of where you need to give your tenant 3 full months notice, a lot of buyers who have sold something or need to move into something now, they can't wait 3 to 4 months to move in. But if you are flexible with your dates, you can really take advantage of that, and you can really get that in a good price. I also had, and that was, a YouTube buyer of mine. I have another YouTube buyer that we're under contract in Yale Town. Again, we've had one of the lowest sales in that particular building since 2016. It's one of the lowest sales. The building is perfect. The unit is great. I don't foresee us having any issues with the due diligence here. But again, a buyer who knew what they want, were well educated, was getting their information from very reputable sources, and was able to make a move quickly. I find that buyers out there who rely on a lot of these articles that tell 2 different sides of the story, that don't necessarily give you the great and best data, that they are the ones that start to really retreat when they should be moving forward and advancing in this market. There is so much value there, and I know a lot of people in the comments, it's going to be a 20% drop, a 30, 40% drop. Don't catch the falling knife. These are people that likely have never entered into the real estate market. Those who are seasoned investors, or those who have bought and sold a lot of property over the years, they are seeing this as a great opportunity, and they're putting their money in there. And I want to preface this, even if you're buying something now, you could still see these micro declines over the next 2 years. I think 2026 is going to continue to be soft. We're going to continue to have these micro declines in pricing. And in 2027, I think is going to be another soft year before we start to have this economy turn around a little bit. Hopefully we can get this tariff conversation out of the way as well. But with 2026 being a year of record mortgage renewals, there's still going to be a lot more distressed sellers. There's going to be court-ordered sales, and there's going to be a lot of good value. For those out there, and I get texts from a lot of you who are looking for fire sales, who are looking for deals, if you're just passively looking, you're never going to find them. Somebody else who's more active is going to be on the ball and get there quicker. So I can send you some of these listings, but if you're not actively looking and prioritizing it, you are going to miss out on these properties. So the people who are actively looking, we're going in to see the units as quickly as possible, and we can make decisions quickly. Those are the people who are getting the value. So my recommendation to anyone who's a buyer right now, if you are a buyer and you actively want a good deal, you need to be actively engaged with an agent. Don't try to do this yourself and look at REW or realtor.ca. You are not going to be able to filter filter them out quickly enough, and you're not going to be able to make a determination on your own without an agent. So if there's somebody out there, obviously I'd love to help you. But if you are working with someone or kind of passively working with someone, just engage in a professional manner, get that agency agreement signed, and go out there and get some good value. For sellers, it is going to continue to be a slog. I know I have sellers of mine and other people who are wanting to wait till the spring, but there's not going to be any help in the spring markets. In fact, I think they're going to be slightly worse. And if there is news that rates are going to increase again, and they actually do increase before that spring market, that is going to take a lot of wind out of the sails for sellers and buyers as well. So if you are a buyer right now and you can lock into a great rate and have a good hold for the next 90 to 120 days, the best time to get a property is in December and January. A lot of buyers are taking the foot off the gas pedal. They're putting it on pause until after Christmas, but there are still sellers that need to sell. Sellers who may have already bought something and they have to move it, or they're going to lose out on their new purchase, and other personal items that may have happened, because in most cases, if you are listing now, there's a reason why you're listing. Why not wait until January? Or you're someone who overshot the fall market and just want to get out and be more realistic with your pricing. If you need any help, whether it's on the buy side or the sell side, I'm working with a lot of you out there. I really appreciate all my YouTube subscribers where we've been able to engage in productive and very fantastic sales agreements, both on the buy side and the sell side. And I want to help more of you out there. So if you want to book a call with me, scan that QR code in the banner. My link to my calendar is in the description below as well. I have my home buyer and seller blueprints for a free download to help you with that. And thank you so much for your support. See you on the next one.